Well, if we're gonna find any ghosts, we better split up.
You're listening to Never Split Up, a horror movie podcast.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back once again to the Never Split Up podcast. My name's Nolan, along with Anthony, and today's episode 71. We are covering one that we've been looking forward to for a while, The Lodge, released initially in 2019 and then in theaters in 2020. What's going on, Ant?
How's it going? This is a good one for the cold week we've been having, especially the freezing cold week that definitely plays into the plot points in this movie.
It's perfect. Yeah, I've been freezing my ass off. We've had single digits here in New Jersey for the last couple days, so I did my rewatch, I think, 2 nights ago, and It was just perfect because it was a cold day, and then I sat down at night and watched this, and I felt right at home. This movie, like, talk about feeling the temperature in this movie. I mean, it's right up there with some of the other winter classics, and for me,
yes,
it's just so atmospheric. I mean, the isolation and the cold weather is just, and the fact that they lose power, it's, oh man, yeah. It was perfect for this week for sure.
I could not agree more.
We ran a poll for the Crimson Peak and we actually tied, I believe, correct?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We dead even ties. So
okay.
That was one. I think we may have done that one other time, but it's only happened a couple of times. So
that's
cool
pretty impressive, especially because we do it across like multiple platforms.
Yeah.
So we have to tally up the votes between all the platforms. So it's pretty funny that we tied. So thanks everyone for voting for that. Other than that, do you want to announce real quick just kind of our upcoming episode coming up next time, next week? It's a big one.
So guys, we released the poll for Crimson Peak, but make sure you check out that episode. We had a fun time talking about that movie. It was a first time watch for Nolan. Last week we released Azrael, which was the new Samara Weaving movie from 2024. Good survival horror. Make sure you guys check out that episode. We'll release the poll, before we do cover our next movie, which is going to be the 25th anniversary of my baby Scream 3. So we're going to get back to the world of Scream. We thought it was fitting since Scream 3 is turning 25 in February, and Scream 7 is also filming, so we wanted to get back into the world of Scream a little bit. So I'm obviously amped to cover that movie and talk about it with you.
For sure. We got to keep it rolling with the Scream franchise because they're still pumping out movies, so we gotta catch up. So yeah, I'm glad we're finally tackling Scream 3. It's been a while since we covered that franchise. I forget when we recovered. Probably almost a year, right, since we covered Scream 2.
Last winter we did Scream 2, so it's fitting that we're doing another
year
Scream.
ago. So yeah, okay, yeah. So that's going to be a big one. We always get a lot of views and listeners for our Scream episodes. So thanks everyone for that. But yes, check out Azrael. I'm really proud of that episode. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a smaller Shudder release. If you haven't checked that movie out, go check it out and then listen to that episode that we covered last week. I thought it was a really good discussion. And yeah, we got some goodies in store after Scream. We got some fun episodes coming up, so just stay tuned for that. And we're excited. But for now, we're in the dead of winter, and it's only fitting that we cover. We try to keep it spoiler free on this podcast, but I think we both know that we adore this movie. We've talked about it to each other before, so this isn't going to be a surprise in terms of how we like it and our reactions. But you want to cover just the overall cast, crew, and the synopsis before we get into our overall thoughts on this one?
Yes. All right, guys. So, like Nolan said, it was released in limited release theatrically, for us common folk in 2020. Had some festival runs in 2019. And the synopsis is a soon-to-be stepmom is snowed in with her fiancé's 2 children at a remote holiday village. Just as relations begin to thaw between the trio, some strange and frightening events take place. It was directed by Severin Fiala and Veronica Franz. They actually directed the foreign original Goodnight Mommy, which I'm also a big fan of. It was also written by them. and it stars Riley Keough, Jaden Martell, Leah McHugh, Richard Armitage, and Alicia Silverstone. That's our core cast, and we can't forget Wally the dog. Wally the dog plays Grady. Can't forget my Wally.
Why'd you have to bring him up? I was gonna ignore him for this episode, but you did it. You brought it up.
So yeah, that's the gist of it. I want to get into overall thoughts because I have a lot to say about this movie.
Okay, yeah, let's just dive right in. Disclaimer: you kind of highlighted Wally the dog. There is an animal death in this movie. That's the one spoiler I will give right off the bat. So if you haven't seen this movie and you're very sensitive, I know a couple people that I've met, Ant included, that just won't watch movies that have deaths. It doesn't happen on screen, but it is visually very disturbing, at least to me, because they do show the dog.
Several times.
Yeah, several times. So just kind of, warning for that. Let's get into the overall thoughts. Like I said, we both recommend this movie. I feel like this movie is... I've recommended this movie, I feel like, more than any other movie to, like, random strangers or people that I, like, barely know. Only because, when you get people that are like, oh, yeah, I love horror. Like, I love horror. I feel like this is a great litmus test for, like, what kind of horror fan you really are, if that makes sense. I liken this movie to, like, I say it's like Hereditary's little brother. It has very much the same vibes. It's not the masterpiece that Hereditary is, so I will make maybe some comparisons to the two, but Hereditary is just in the stratosphere. We covered that movie in our top 10 of the 2010s, so check that episode out last year. But this movie is, I say the little brother just because of the scope of everything and how it's kind of more contained, but the vibes are very similar. So if you are a fan of Hereditary and those types of movies, I think you will enjoy this. It is a slow burn pretty much all the way through.
Emphasis on slow burn, yeah.
Where it differentiates from a movie like Hereditary, I feel like in the third act, Hereditary just kind of kicks it into fifth gear, whereas this movie never really gets there. But that's not a bad thing. I feel like it stays kind of in the same gear the whole movie, but I like that. And it fits the movie so well. It's very creepy, very disturbing. It's got, me, I love a good cult aspect. It's got heavy cult vibes, suicide cult vibes, might I add. So, it didn't really explain it in the synopsis that you read, but our main character is a former cult member. When she was a child, she survived this suicide cult. She was the only survivor. So it kind of plays on that throughout the movie. I think it does it brilliantly, and it's kind of like it's not a like a whodunit mystery, but it is a mystery because it fucks with you the whole time. And obviously, no spoilers yet, but you don't really quite know what's happening, and it makes you just feel very uneasy. The cinematography, some of these shots of the frozen lake and the lodge. Like I said before, it's very atmospheric. Definitely watch this in the winter. If you're listening now, definitely watch this right away before the weather gets warmer because it's just perfect for the winter. This movie's ending is iconic in terms of how disturbing it is. Do not expect a feel-good movie from this. I remember the first time I watched it, I don't remember if you recommended it or if I just saw it because I didn't see it in theaters. Sure. I watched it at home. It was one of those where I watched it at home when I was living alone and I was by myself, and very similar to Hereditary. My jaw was on the floor. I was like, what the fuck did I just witness? How did they end the movie that way? That is so fucked up. So yeah, if you're into that and everything I just said, it's a high recommend. But yeah, going back, I'll recommend this to some people and they'll come back to me and be like, what the fuck really? Like, that's the movie you recommended? I'm like, hey man, you said you were into horror. Like, I'm giving you some bleak horror. So yeah, I adore this movie. It's really fun. I'm excited to get into it with you.
Hell yeah. I saw this movie in theaters in February of 2020. It was one of the last two movies I saw before that pandemic hit. So it was I saw this and Invisible Man, and then theaters were shut down for like months. So this was one of the last couple movies I got to see, and I went in and I'm like, okay, I'm in for like a, art house, prestige movie. I hope it's like cool, like in whatever. And what I saw was like, this is my favorite. This is gonna be my favorite movie of 2020, and it was my
Yeah.
favorite movie of 2020. I love me some. I love fun horror, but I really have a soft spot for depressing, bleak horror, and it doesn't get more depressing and bleak than this movie. I think it's absolutely a gut punch. It makes you angry. It makes you feel disgusting. It's a feel bad movie. Like it really makes you feel bad by the time it's over.
Yeah.
And that's its job, and it succeeds at its job. I'm obsessed with this movie. I love it so much. Like you said, the cinematography, the acting. I think Riley Keough, the lead, she does not get talked about enough for this performance. She is outstanding. This movie is about the two things that are scariest to me: children and religion, and because religion is a cult. So those are very
Children and
terrifying.
religion.
Those
You
are
heard it here
very
first.
terrifying things to me. But yeah, man, I just think that the directing, the acting, everything comes together so well, and it's so freaking disturbing. And you think the build up, and then when you find out, we'll get into the spoilers, like what the twist is and like what's actually going on. I thought it's really clever what it's playing on your mind about, are they really going through this? Is this supernatural? Is it real? What's happening? Is she going crazy? I'm not going to say anything until we get to the actual review. But then when you find out what's going on, and then you're like, okay, that's it. But then it just takes it a step further with the ending. It doesn't build to an action-packed ending, but it is a powerful ending because of what a character is going through and what the events that happen throughout the whole movie leads this character to end up. It's powerful mess. It's a fucked up movie, and I am absolutely obsessed with it so much. I adore it. I love it so much. It's my favorite movie of 2020. I recommended it to everybody, and they're like, "You're fucked up for making me watch this because this movie is so dark." And I kept doing it. They're like, "This is dark, and I need to go to therapy after this movie." I'm like, "Fuck yeah, it is awesome." Yeah, I'm obsessed with this movie. I really want to get into it. It's one of my favorite neon horror movies. It's one of my favorite independent horror movies of the last decade for sure. And I think I like that comparison with Hereditary because they are both depressing. I would call them, that's the depressing horror genre, and I do think they work well together. Those two. Hereditary has more of like a tiny bit of mainstream, like like little creepy scenes. This one's just complete like down in the dumps, depressing horror. But I love them watching them together. I think they really are a good double feature if you have the headspace and the mental. If you're in a good place mentally, you can like maybe try it out one night. But yeah, this will fuck you up. This movie, but I will say, it's not for every. It's obviously not like the mainstream slashers or supernatural horrors. This might not be everyone's cup of tea for horror. It is very slow, like Nolan said, but it will mess you up in ways other than being scared of a jump out or a pop out. It's not trying to do that. It's trying to get under your skin. And if you like that kind of horror, then this is for you.
Yeah, I like how you said how Hereditary is maybe a little bit more mainstream. I think the main difference, like I kind of highlighted before, is Hereditary crescendos at the end, and it's like this big like crescendo of everything. This movie doesn't really have a crescendo in the conventional way. It's more of our main character, Grace, crescendoing. Yes. It's her character kind of coming full circle and seeing how she ends up. So it's not a conventional way that they end the movie, but I personally love it. I think its main strength is how layered it is. You talked about how there's a twist, and you think it's a couple different options, right? Like it could be paranormal, it could be, her PTSD from the cult.
What's going on?
But then it takes it in a different direction that you're not expecting at all. So it's layered in that regard. I love the kids. You said that like kids are some of the creepiest thing. I love how they're unconventional in their roles in this movie. Gonna keep it spoiler free for now, but if you guys haven't watched this, I highly recommend it just for
Please
kind of like
it.
the reveal. Like the reveal, I wish I could watch this movie for the first time again. I do love my rewatches, but nothing will ever capture how I felt the first time I put this movie on. I was just in total like disgust and shock, it was just, I was like, wow, this is, I remember thinking like during the reveal and stuff, like, this is brilliant. This is brilliant because I've never seen anything like it before in the way it was tackled. So yeah, it's very layered. It's like you said, it doesn't have this big climactic ending, but it does in its own way. Its own slow, dreadful way. And it's like, oh my God, yeah. The last person I recommended this movie to, I bought my house a few months ago, was my HVAC guy. He like came to the house and he saw a horror poster or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, you like horror?" He's like, "Oh, I'm big into horror." And he's like this like all American like HVAC blue collar worker guy. I'm like, "Yeah, you love horror?" He's like, "Oh, you got any like horror movies for me?" I'm like, "Yeah, watch The Lodge." He comes back the next week. He's like, "Dude, I watched The Lodge." I just saw the look on his face. I like a half wanted to apologize, but I loved it. It was great. He's like, "What the hell, man?"
So exactly, that's the reaction. They're like, "You are fucked up in the head for making me watch this." I'm like,
I don't even know if he liked it. He was so disturbed by the fact that I recommended that movie. That means the movie did its job. Yeah.
I like what you said, that I recommend it to anyone who likes horror, or even likes movies, because you're gonna go not only on an emotional journey, you're gonna be angry, but I physically reacted to this movie, how frustrated and how like unsettled I had a physical reaction too the first time I saw it. I'm like, oh, I was like cringing in my theater seat, and I was so affected by this movie. So I definitely recommend it no matter what. I want to get into spoilers.
Yeah. Let's go.
So guys,
pause the episode. Definitely go watch it, because this is a movie that you need to experience with as little information as possible. Even what we said maybe is too much. Like, definitely pause the episode and go watch it, because it's a high recommend, especially if you're into that slow burn, kind of creepy, just unsettling type movie. For sure. But yeah.
One of my favorites of the last few years.
Let's get into it. So the entire kind of opening, and, it starts off with who we think is our lead is Laura, played by Alicia Silverstone.
First of all, kudos to her, by the way, in this movie.
I know.
She kills it. Fucking 90s like pop, 90s like tween star. Like, amazing. I just want to say that she surprised me.
Clueless. I mean, she's
she's as Clueless, if. Come on.
Yeah. And she's doing this movie. I'm like, wow, holy crap. Yeah. Was this how long has Neon been around? Because I thought they were like a newer company, but
Neon's been around for a bit, but in the horror, I think in the horror genre, they've been really picking it up within the last I would say the last 5 to 10 years. They've really been a mainstay.
Yeah, I mean, now they're just killing it. Now they're really coming out with some good stuff.
I actually think when they started, it was like the later 2010s, and they started with a couple really small horror movies, and that was kind of like their base. Like, that's where they got brought into the spotlight, and then they just they're going back to and they're blowing up. But I don't think they've even been around for 10 years as a whole.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure, but yeah.
No, because I was even surprised to see this was distributed by Neon.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, they've been killing it for,
it's
4 or 5 years now.
It's probably my favorite Neon horror movie, because it's so dark, so messed up. But yeah, we'll get into the opening. But my initial thoughts of spoilers is, fuck them kids. I fucking hate them
there's
so
a
much.
lot of blame to go around in this movie. Fuck the dad.
Yeah. Well,
the dad is a piece of shit.
Stupid. Very stupid.
So stupid. I was talking to you before we started recording. This entire movie is a never split up moment for me. I mean, every character, even our main, is pretty silly. I mean, she's the only one that has kind of an excuse, because she's off her meds.
PTSD too.
Yeah,
from what she went through.
So you can give her a pass with a lot of the stuff, but even the stuff in the beginning, it's like, girl, what are we doing? So yeah, this entire movie. But what did you think of the little? I'm not going to call it cameo, but the little appearance from Alicia Silverstone. I mean, she is in the beginning of the movie until she blows her head off. And very similar to Hereditary, how you think she's going to be the lead, kind of like the girl in Hereditary, the daughter. She dies, and that's what kind of sets off these events that happen the rest of the movie. Totally didn't see it coming. I didn't see anything for this movie before I watched it, and it's one of those scenes where you think it's like kind of like not a filler scene, but it's just like, okay, we're seeing her in her everyday life.
Her kids off to the
she's
whatever,
making the house and tidy and stuff, and she just sits down, and the way her movements, the way the acting in that particular scene when she gets it is oof.
I remember I'm like, oh, Alicia Silverstone, this she's gonna have a good supporting role. And when I saw the opening scene, it wasn't like a packed audience by any means. Obviously, this is a smaller, limited movie. I don't think it really had much marketing. But when I didn't get to rewatch it this time, but I recall, I believe she drops the kids off, and obviously her whatever, what's his name again? The husband, Richard, or that's his real name.
Richard, yeah.
Richard and Richard. Okay.
Yeah, Richard.
Richard. Yeah. He obviously she knows he's seeing someone. He's like, I want to get a divorce. I plan on asking Grace to marry me. Pretty much is the gist of it when she drops the kids off, and then I believe her reaction was just kind of like, okay, and she like smiles and leaves the house if I'm not mistaken. And I was like, oh, okay, she's going through some things upstairs. And then when she goes home, like you said, she's kind of just like getting the house in order, and then she just sits down, has a sip of wine, and she's like fumbling through her bag. I'm like, oh, it's like something for the kids. And she just takes out the gun and blows her head off. There were like audible gasps in the theater, and I was like, oh, what the fuck is happening?
And you see
right
it
now?
all. You see it's like front and center. You see her put the gun in her mouth. Yeah.
And the camera's just focused there watching her do her, like, it doesn't leave. Like, there's no cuts. It just stays there, and she's doing her things, and then she just boom, boom. I'm like, what the fuck? This is going to be my movie of the year just from that scene alone. I love it so much. It was shocking. It was completely shocking and disturbing. And she killed it in those 5 minutes of screen time she had. Absolutely killed it.
No, I agree. The movie totally sets the audience up for what's to come and what to expect, what type of movie we're going to get. And, I think it was brilliant how they did it so early on. What did you think? Other than that obvious scene that was very disturbing, I love how they set the groundwork with right away with the cult footage, and you get the home video stuff. I thought that was really cool, like when the kids sneak on the father's computer. So I guess little backstory that the father is like a reporter or something, or is he an investigative journalist, and he investigated this cult,
writer or
and
whatever,
she was our main
His
Grace was the
subject,
only
right?
survivor as a kid, and now he's dating her as an adult.
Which is also
It's
a kind
like
of creepy, kind of
20
grooming
years later.
situation for me.
Yeah,
him.
it's
using
weird.
Her,
It's
that's really...
It's ethically weird. It's definitely a weird situation for sure.
Yeah, I would say that I like I feel like that's not in his code of ethics to be dating his subject of research. Like, he's taking advantage of her. I feel like, I don't know, that's the vibe I got. And I believe, wasn't the leader of the cult her father? Was the leader of the cult?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I also like talking about Hereditary, the comparisons. They really emphasize dollhouses. Like, the kids use the dollhouses to, deal with their trauma and emotions. And obviously a big theme of Hereditary is Toni Collette's character does the same thing.
Yeah.
She's an artist and uses it. So I thought that was a cool comparison. But yeah, I think the opening not only sets the stage for the characters and their, how they are mentally and emotionally and like the situation, it also sets the stage for what kind of movie we're going to get. And it's a movie that's not going to be fun.
It's not going to be fun, but at the same time, you don't know what you're getting into because it still surprises you along the way.
Oh, yeah.
It surprised me at least. And, as a veteran, movie guy, it has a couple surprises. I love what they did with Grace in the beginning of the movie. So you talked about how Richard is talking to Laura and how he wants a divorce.
Right.
She's like in the yard, like you see like the back of her head.
Love
you
that
don't
shot.
see her. It's very dramatic, her entrance. The kids are in the car, I believe. They're getting ready to go to the lodge. And she's like, she walks up to the car. It's very dramatic because you don't see her for a while. It's like good 15 minutes into the movie, and you finally get introduced to her. So I love the way they built that up, kind of toying with us, thinking like, okay, this is going to be like the big villain reveal. You know what I mean? Like, she's going to be this. Well, the only thing we know about her is she was in this cult. So we're expecting this girl who's like a little unhinged, a little weird, a little kind of unsettling, but no, she gets in the car and she seems like this sweet, innocent, lady. So you're like, okay, she's got like a little dog in her lap, and I'm like, all right, let's see what's going on here,
I 100% agree, and I like that you said that because the mystery in the beginning is, Grace, I'm with Grace. Grace, you're gonna go to the lodge with Grace. Grace survived the cult. So you're in your head when you have all this information thrown at you. I mean, as humans do, we make assumptions. And I'm like, she's gonna get in the car. I don't know. She's gonna have like slashes over her body from surviving a suicide cult. She's gonna have like crazy face, whatever. And she turns around and she's just like this hot 20-something-year-old. And she's like, hey guys, this is my cute dog. I'm like, okay, wow. So it was a cool subversion of expectations with that. But just because she looks normal does not mean she's not dealing with a lot in her head. So I thought that was really clever of the directors to introduce her character like that, like you said, by not even hiding her face. I believe when she first gets into the car, she doesn't turn around for like a couple minutes. So I thought that was very smart directing choice.
Yeah. So and I wanted to highlight. I think it's Riley Keough.
Keough, yeah.
Keough, the granddaughter of Elvis Presley.
Yes.
Little trivia. So it's the eldest daughter of Lisa Marie. And she's been in some roles. I know her from Mad Max Fury Road. She was one of the daughters, whatever, in Mad Max, the redhead she played. But yeah, she's great. She's great in this. I think she's
excellent.
She has that kind of quirkiness to her. She seems very sweet, but maybe there's something going on. She has that
dark side. She could flip.
I actually you'll like this. I kind of compare her performance to like a Kristen Stewart. The way she her movements and her acting in this movie.
I see that.
It reminded me very much of Kristen Stewart. But no, she did a good job. She's a great lead, and you kind of you don't know what's going on. Like you said, does she have PTSD? I mean, we get to the lodge, and there are very, very big clues that, like, this lodge, there's something going on, like, with the mother.
Right.
Connected to the lodge.
Is the mother going to haunt them? Like, we don't know.
Exactly.
You don't, exactly. But I like how, even though we're, like, led to, like, everyone's making, like, the kids and the dad, they're hyping Grace up, and the kids, like, obviously hate Grace. Obviously, there's obvious reasons, but it's like she's the big bad. Like, she's going to be this nasty stepmom. But I immediately was, like, relating to her and feel for her because she ends up being the outsider because she's the one left out. Even though I didn't know if she was going to take a turn and be this, like, crazy killer. You know, I didn't know, like, what was going to happen. I don't know what she was going to go through, but I immediately felt for Grace in the beginning. I'm like, oh, she really just wants to
She's put in almost an impossible situation, and that's why I want to talk about the dad, Richard.
Horrible person. Horrible
character. Their mom just died. I think it was like 6 months ago.
Yeah, 6 months.
He had been dating this lady, but they clearly didn't have a relationship with the kids. You know, the kids didn't really have a relationship with this lady.
Right.
He initially asked them, like, hey, we're going to go to the lodge for Christmas, and, you know, I'm going to be working, though. So they rejected it wholeheartedly. They did not want to do it. Obviously, he convinces them to go, but dude, like, I don't care, cult or not, no cult. Like, you're leaving your kids with this woman that they barely know. Their mom just died 6 months ago. Like, that's kind of fucked up. Like, be with your kids on Christmas, you know? Cult.
So, like, they're all three, everyone's in a bad emotional, like, not in a normal emotional headspace to be isolated in a lodge. The kids, her.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on, Dad?
Even if, like, you don't expect anything, like, bad to happen, like, they're just not going to have a good time. You're just setting them up for failure, I feel like, you know?
Well, all of them are uncomfortable, Grace and the kids. Like, why? Yeah. You're irresponsible, and that's selfish of you to go leave them. Like, hi, I'm going to drop you off so I can go back and live my life and work for a couple days.
Well, I do think Grace was eager. She was pretty eager for this trip because she wanted to, like, get to know the kids. I think she was putting her best foot forward.
I agree with you, and there's dialogue, I believe, in the movie. Again, I didn't get to rewatch, but I believe there's dialogue which is like, it was my idea to, like, stay with the kids and you go back. But still, knowing what she went through, like, maybe you might want to be around because she could, especially when she's isolated, you don't think she can have some things going on up there and revert back to something. I don't know, Dad. Even if she says she's okay, you got it. And especially with the line of work he's in, you think he would know better. So he's not a good dad, and he's not a good boyfriend. He's not a good partner,
and he's ready to marry this lady, and he doesn't really even know her. So we get the scene where they get to the lodge and she hides the meds from him. So he doesn't even know that she's on meds. Like, that seems like a relationship that is not ready to move to the next step. I mean, you're hiding stuff. I mean, so right there, I was judging them, like, I wasn't necessarily judging her, but I was just judging them as a couple. All right, maybe we're moving a little too fast if that's the kind of stuff you're keeping secrets from. I don't know if she lied to him and said, like, oh, I'm not on meds anymore. And, I don't know what it was. But, yeah, it's just a very bad situation that was set up by Richard. I know she wanted to do it, but Richard should know better. I mean, it's his kids. He even has the opportunity to, when they get to the lodge, to stay because, remember, Grace fell into the lake.
Yep.
And she was pretty fucked up from it. Obviously, anyone would be. So he was ready to stay there and call out of work. And she convinces him like fairly easily.
She's fine. Like, I'm fine.
Oh, I'm fine. Go. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll go. I'm like, dude, no. Like, what are you doing,
I do
man?
think that fucking little bitch like planted it to like have her go get her doll and fall. I'm like, that fucking kid.
You think she did? Yeah.
I do. I don't like
everything was probably calculated.
Oh, yeah.
So what did you think of our setting? I love the initial shot of the frozen lake when they get there, kind of looking out into the darkness. I love those shots so much. It almost feels like you're on a foreign planet in a way. It's like very isolated. You can't see anything around.
I agree, and it also sets you up for there's like when shit hits the fan, there's no one to help you. There's nowhere to go besides out in the freezing cold. Clearly, we see what happens when the poor dog goes out in the kids let the dog out in the freezing cold. Like, there's nowhere to go besides to freeze to death. You have no other option than to be in that house together. And that might be scarier than anything else when you're stuck with the three of you together when obviously you're not meshing. So that alone set the stage for some, if anyone's been somewhere isolated with someone they don't want to be with, that's scary in and of itself. So I think it really set the stage well. Just the cinematography of it all alone, and obviously, I don't know, I brought me back. I got some Shining vibes too, but just even more isolated because it's just that little log cabin and there's nothing else around you.
There's nothing around. There's no other cabins. It's just a frozen lake and that's it. Also, fuck Richard because there's a giant blizzard on the way. He didn't check the Weather Channel to see that he was gonna have a tough time getting back. So yeah, he's just messed up. One last Richard before he leaves us for a while. Another, I would say, a big never split up moment is, he's talking to Grace and he's asking her, I believe he says, "Are you feeling up to this?" After it's after the fishing hole scene, and she's like, "Yeah, I feel up to it." He's like, "All right, yeah, I trust you," and then he gives her a gun.
Oh my god! You think he was shooting?
I'm sitting there like, what?
To leave her alone with your kids?
What? What do you think is what possible scenario would she need a gun? Is a grizzly bear going to come out of the woods and attack them? I just thought that was so bizarre and insane. It was almost there's no comedy in this movie, but it was almost comical.
Yeah, there's no comedy.
The way it happened, the way he was she was shaken up and he was like, "All right, I'll stay. Oh, okay, you don't want me to stay? All right, I'll go back. All right, here's the family gun." What? And then he teaches her how to shoot, and she goes out there and she is fucking from the Wild West. She's
yeah,
and shoots all the targets. He's like, "Oh, I guess you're pretty good at this." I'm like, dude, red flag, warning sign. What the fuck, man?
It's Richard, do you want her to take care of your kids for you? Is this your secret mission?
Right? It was almost like a double twist where maybe he wanted the kids to get dispatched. Yeah,
I did think of that too. But yeah, he's dumb in all the ways. Oh my
god!
He doesn't have anything going on up there.
He at the end of this movie, he deserved his fate. I mean, just for how dumb he was. He did not
even in that scene when he
movie.
Received his fate. I'm like, are you fucking stupid right now? Do you see what she looks like? What are you doing?
We'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that because that's another huge moment. I feel like also, Richard's going to be brought up definitely in our Never Split Up segment because
for sure.
Oh yeah, the end of the movie too. Yeah.
But even when he first he leaves, but there's a lot of this Catholic imagery and Catholic things around the house.
Yeah.
You would think after what she went through, being in a religious suicide cult, he would make sure that all these things would be removed before leaving her alone with children before she has nightmares. I know the kids obviously exasperated a lot of that too.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that was definitely intentional. I think that was part of Richard's character. I think he is kind of one of those people that is just kind of if I don't think about it, it's not real. I think he wants to believe that she's normal now and that nothing bothers her. I mean, he doesn't know that she's on the meds. He's always kind of just testing the waters with her and she's always saying he's fine. So I think that was him trying to just. I don't think he really thought about that, to his credit. I mean, it is kind of stupid, but he's one of those people that are just like, oh, it happened 20 years ago, like, which is weird because he's the one who investigated everything. You would think he'd be like in tune to what the trauma was, but I feel like he just downplayed the trauma tremendously, and he thought that she was just way more capable than she was.
And I also feel like he's such like a freak or whatever. I almost think that he could have been okay with it just because he wanted it. Like, I honestly think that she was his subject, and maybe he wanted to see how she would react to it if he stayed and use it for his professional gain to maybe write about it or something. That's how messed up I think he is.
Yeah,
not saying
I don't
intentionally,
know.
but I could see him if she reacted to it and he was there, he could use that for himself.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, it was a story that was like 20 years old, so I don't even know if he was still working on the story. I think it was just one of those where he just got to know her as a child, and then when she grew up, they like reconnected. It's still creepy. I mean, he's very weird.
Richard.
Yeah, he like asks her, he's like, "Do you want me to take down the crucifix, the cross?" And she's like, dude, just take it down. Like, why would you have to ask
that?
What? Yeah. She's staring. She's at the edge of the bed, like staring up at it. She's clearly uncomfortable. Don't let her give you the option. Just take it down, man. Like, come on.
And sure enough, she has nightmares about her father in the cult right after she sees all that.
Yeah, that dude is creepy, man. That voice. Oh, yeah.
Repent. His voice gave me chills. It was scary.
Yeah, I wonder, who is that?
I didn't highlight him in the cast, but I probably should have because he was so good.
Is that
I don't even know if he's
her father?
Yeah, it's her father who does the repent.
In real life?
Repent. Oh, I don't know.
Because he's Daniel, and he's got the same last name.
Oh, Keogh?
Keogh, yeah.
Okay, maybe.
He's credited. He's the only other male actor that's credited, so...
Maybe.
Oh, is it, never mind. Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to look.
But he killed... Because that scared me. Her nightmares.
I know.
It really scared me.
Talk about scaring. So there's one, like, big jump scare in this movie, the piano scene. The piano, dude, the sound design in this scene, like, freaked me the fuck out. It kind of gave me little, like, Insidious vibes.
Yes.
Oh, it was a good jump scare. It took me off guard because I was not expecting like a jump scare movie.
I think I jumped
and that's what makes the jump scare so effective when it's like completely. You know, I love movies like Smile 2 and stuff that rely on jump scares because they do it so well. But a movie like this where you're not expecting something like that and it just hits you with the fucking jump scare. And it wasn't even like a pop out jump scare. It was really just all audio cues.
Right.
It like jolted you out of your seat. I don't know how it was in the theater, but it like
my God,
woke me the fuck up. I was like, holy shit, what the fuck was that?
And I like how you brought up Insidious because the first couple nights you hear like, you know, the dogs downstairs in its bed barking. So you're like, is this a haunting movie? Like, I don't know. Are we getting like a typical haunting movie? I don't know. Is someone haunting the house? Is it the mom? Because you kind of see also like the dog growls and barks. She's like a shadow of someone walking up the stairs a little bit too. You're like thrown off guard, like what kind of horror are we going to get? And it kind of keeps you on edge throughout until the big reveal, because there's questions we get to a certain point and the kids are like, are we dead? Like, you know what I mean? There's so much things going on.
Yeah,
and
I mean, go ahead, yeah.
I love how the movie that they watch also is that they're watching, like, having a movie night and they're watching The Thing, which is obviously a movie about isolation. I'm like, oh, director's clever.
Yeah.
And I love the scene when they're like, the kids are like, let's use this like indoor heaters, and Grace is even with it enough. She's like, at that point, she's like, is this safe to like have this in the house? Like, she's weird and quirky, but she is trying to do the right things for the first act and a half of the movie. Like, she's still in the headspace where she's trying to do good for these kids who just completely flip it on her, which is so fucked up.
Yeah, so what happens is, we didn't highlight, is the power goes out.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't get the generator to work. So they're without power in the middle of this storm. They get like a space heater, and they're able to kind of huddle up together in the living room, and she falls asleep. And this is where I believe we get our first kind of dream sequence, hallucination. You're not quite sure if she's dreaming or she's whatever. We don't know. It's up for interpretation at this point. But
is she having a dream?
To this point in the movie, I'm pretty convinced that the mother is the shadowy figure and is haunting them. And it was super creepy. I love the way they play on that, and
especially because Alicia
really
Silverstone, like, oh, she's gonna come, she's gonna be haunting throughout the movie, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that would have been cool, but it's obviously not the case. But I was down for that. But yeah, I love how it plays on that a lot throughout the movie.
The real case is a lot more horrifying, though, how it actually plays out in the movie. Because we're fucking killed. But yeah, so let's just cut to obviously in the morning, she wakes up one morning and her belongings, her medication, the fucking dog, they're all missing. And the food. And the Christmas decorate. Like, everything's missing.
Everything. So it's an empty house. The kids' clothes.
The generator went out. Like, the cell phones are dead. What the fuck's going on? Like, nothing's there. No dog, no nothing. I would be like, if my dog was missing, I would just be like, all right, I'm just going to kill myself. But everything is, you're like, what the hell happened? And the kids are like, oh my God, like, what's going on? So she goes, I think she does suspect that at first that they did prank her. But she figures out that, like, their shit's missing too. She's like, oh no, like, something big's happening. So then you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Well, I love how the first time she falls asleep, you get that weird sequence, and then she wakes up and she finds the doll in her suitcase. I don't know if you remember that part. And so I thought that was clever from the kid's point of view, because then the girl is looking for a doll. It's like a doll of her mother, and it really, she cares a lot about
even
it.
They show
so
her,
Grace
like,
has to lie
and everything,
and like put it with the dog and put it in the dog bed, and she has to lie to the girl. What's her name? Mia.
Bitch.
She has to lie to Mia. So right there, you're like, okay.
Mia and Aiden.
She's obviously having episodes when she goes to sleep. I don't know if it's like sleepwalking. So they set you up nice, and then, like you said, the next night everything is just gone. It's not just the doll; it's the whole house is just gone. It's like, what? Did she kill the dog? Is she?
I know.
Like, what? It was the ghost.
I knew
that's
once
like
the dog was
them.
gone, I'm like, oh no, we're gonna come back to that at a certain point. I'm not gonna like how it ends. But it's clever how they brought the indoor heaters in earlier, because at a certain point after they're theorizing everything, Aiden, she's like, tells her, I think he says, like, I had a dream that, like, the indoor heater malfunctioned and we all suffocated and maybe we're all dead. I'm like, is this a movie about, like, that they're the dead ones? Like, I'm like, so my brain's going in, like, all these different directions. And she's led to believe that they're in, like, a purgatory or, going into the afterlife because he's fucking with them. The kids are fucking with her. I'm like, oh. So she just goes into a full-on anxiety, like, after all this shit, pops up. And I felt for her so much.
Yeah, I love, again, it's little scenes that kind of build up and add layers. The scene where I believe it's Mia is talking to her dad. She's lying to her dad about having fun and stuff. Actually, I believe first he speaks with Grace before
the shit hits the fan, right?
Yeah, before.
Okay.
And she's telling Richard, like, oh, everything's fine,
Oh, yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
And I'm like, is everything, like, come on, lady. But then, after the fact, Mia speaks to the father. And you think I knew right away. I'm like, yeah, she's definitely talking to her dad. She's not just talking to herself. The way that scene played out, I didn't believe her for a second.
I thought maybe she was talking to her mom or something. Like, who we don't know. Like,
Yeah, I mean, she was on the phone.
Yeah.
I don't know. She got caught on the phone, so I didn't buy her for a second. So that kind of added, like, kind of a little bit of unreliability to her. So at this point, I'm starting to question the kids, like, what role they're going to play in all of this. But I did not see it coming, but I was starting to kind of maybe put the pieces together, just not in the right place. I was still kind of confused.
Again, like, the way this movie gives you so many question marks is so smart, because, again, you're kind of, like, in the headspace of, you're put into Grace's headspace. You're like, what the fuck's going on? And I love when a movie, like, puts you in the lead character's headspace, because in a lot of movies you're like, oh, like, I relate to them, but in this movie you are Grace for a lot of it until they reveal. And I think that's, like, excellent. I love that.
Yeah, I agree. now that we're getting into it, she's now off her meds.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting longer and longer,
missing.
so it's like, okay, now she's gonna start
Not
to be
only
a
that,
little
but
more
they're not.
unhinged.
She's not eating. It's cold. Like
She
everything.
wakes up in the middle of the lake. I love this scene where she's in the middle of the lake. This was probably one of my favorite sequences.
She's also because she's sleepwalking too. We've seen her little bits of sleepwalking. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was cool. But so we don't know if that was real or not, because then she
Right.
wakes up in the house again. Everything is fucked up. The clocks are fucked up. They keep saying January 9th.
Yes.
So she has to like reset the clock, and then it happens again. Obviously, the kids are still playing dumb. They have no idea what's going on. Aiden, who we haven't really talked about much,
Hate him.
he's the older brother. He's kind of just very standoffish. I mean, him and Grace go at it a lot in this movie, especially in the first half of this movie.
He like creeps at her in the shower too in that one scene. I believe,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, I don't know. I probably would too. I mean,
But it was like it wasn't like you're high. It was like I'm like, okay, this kid's weird.
Yeah, I know. So I thought that was an interesting
These
thing
kids,
because they kind of start standoffish, and then as shit hits the fan, he kind of opens up a little bit to her. So I'm like, okay, this kid isn't like half bad. Like, you know, they're in like a crisis together. You know, like they butt heads, but they're trying to see eye to eye. So yeah, I was totally thrown for a loop by this ending, but I think the next sequence is the next like real creepy sequence is when she gets the gun. And again, you're not sure if she's like sleepwalking. So we get the imagery of the cult under the tarp, like the people laying under the tarps.
Okay.
You keep seeing the
I
flashes of that.
I
When she
love
looks at the
that.
kids,
Yeah.
she sees the flashbacks of the
And then
cult.
Aiden's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, I thought that was really well done. And she's got the gun in her hand, and I remember, you know, it switches, and you're back to reality, and she's standing over the kid's bed. Very much like Hereditary. They kind of have those sequences, and she's holding the gun, and you're like, oh shit, like is our main character? Because again, you're with Grace this whole time, so you're kind of rooting for her. You're rooting for her to pull through this crisis and kind of stay sane, but you can tell it's slipping, and
she's slowly going.
You're
to
realizing like, oh man, our girl is not okay, and something's gonna happen. She should have never gotten that gun.
I just feel so bad for her because she even at a certain point she's like, all right, I'm gonna try to walk to town. I'm like, okay, Grace, like, I mean, is this real? We don't know. But then I love the scene when she's walking. You're almost like, is she hallucinating? Because then she sees this like kind of like, I guess it's a cross-shaped cabin, and you hear her dad. You see her dad inside the cabin calling to her, which that actually also really creeped me out, that scene. But I thought that was beautifully shot. And then she obviously travels in a circle. She ends up back at the lodge. But I also like when she finds, like, she starts to find things buried in the snow, and she finds the, like, photo of the two kids, and it's, like, says it's, like, a memorial, like, in memoriam of the kids. So it's like, what the fuck is happening? So,
Yeah.
Ugh. And then you see the newspaper article, too, and it has, like, obituaries of them. So then Aiden say that, like, oh, we all died from carbon monoxide poisoning on whatever this date, because it has the date in the obituary. And then he's like, oh, we're in purgatory. I'm like, oh. And then the scene that really fucked with me is when he, like, hangs himself to, like, prove they're dead because nothing happens. I'm like, what are they dead? Like, I was really like, I was falling for it. These fucking kids.
Yeah. No, yeah, they're definitely fucking with her because she takes the cross down earlier in the movie, and I think the big cue that she was back on her cult shit was when she puts the cross back up in the room.
Yep.
And she starts kind of like praying to it and stuff. They're like, oh no, here we go. Like she's totally regressed completely. She's completely off her meds, and now we're gonna have a fun ride the rest of this movie because she's like fully a believer again. So yeah, it just adds to everything that's about to happen. The Aiden hanging, I love that because she goes up the stairs, she sees him just swinging there, and then she just walks away. She doesn't even react. She just, that's when I knew, I'm like, okay, this girl is like going through it right now. She did not even really care to see that. It was so funny.
She's clearly in the middle of like a start of like a mental break. She's having a breakdown. And she fully
yeah,
goes like catatonic, obviously, once she finds the fucking dog outside. That's we'll get to the kids when we get to the reveal, but that's fucked up that they did that.
Yeah, well, we kind of get the reveal right away. If you're a keen eye, they cut to the attic and it has the radio playing of the father, because they obviously were able to get the voice recordings from, I guess, their father. So it's the cult leader playing on the radio, and you're like, wait a second. And then if you look, you see the harness on the ground, on the attic, the floor. So you're like, there's a harness. Okay, so... Yeah, it takes you a couple seconds to kind of, and you might even miss it the first time, but yeah.
They finally start to get upset when they see her fucking walking back after she finds a fucking frozen dog. The girl, she's like, oh my God, like she's crying. She's like, we just let him out. I'm like, but
no, so I actually disagree. I think it was an accident. I don't think they meant to leave the dog out.
They did leave it out. Yeah.
Well, I think in the process of removing everything from the logs, I think they just left the door open, and I think the dog did escape. Because Mia was definitely, like, visibly upset, like, that the dog died. Even when the dog went missing, it seemed like they were surprised and genuinely...
No, I'm not saying... I don't think they, like, literally, like, threw the dog out to, like, die.
Yeah.
But they obviously didn't... They weren't careful with
no,
making sure the dog was okay. But I don't think they like murdered the dog or anything. I don't think that.
No,
but they definitely
did so that like, was definitely an accident. And that's when they like realized like, okay, maybe we took this too far.
And then she wouldn't come in when she comes home with the dog. She's literally like like she won't go inside. She's just like which was really, this broke my heart. She's like on the porch, just like holding the dog for what seemed like forever. And that's eventually what leads them to like confess to her that they were pretty much.
Again, this is another kind of layer. It's good storytelling because she mentions earlier in the movie how she's never allowed to have a dog growing up because her dad was super religious and stuff.
Yeah.
And so when she was an adult and she kind of broke free from those chains, she bought herself a dog to kind of attach herself to. So that was a symbolism of kind of her new life dying and her regressing, I think. Once she found the dog, there was no hope for her at all. I mean, that was the one tether she had to like the real world, and it was gone. So
literally her emotional support dog, like literally her emotional support.
Yes.
So they pretty much confessed after because it's freezing out. She refuses to come inside with the dog. So Aiden and Mia, they confess saying pretty much like, we gaslit you the whole time. They even I forgot, we didn't mention, they drugged her because they were really focused on her tea that Aiden gives like in the beginning. So they were drugging her,
like sleeping pills, right?
Yeah. So he faked the hanging. So they pretty much just say, we have the recording of your dad, like confess everything. Like we fucked up. But unfortunately for them, she's already too far gone. She doesn't even react to it, really.
It's way too late. Yeah. It's way too late. So yeah, like you said, that's the big reveal. Everything was orchestrated by these kids.
Fuck them kids.
You see the dollhouse. I believe it cuts to Richard. He's back at the home, the regular home.
He realizes
finds the
too,
dollhouse.
Yeah.
That they kind of I guess they were like kind of
they mapped it
recreating
all out.
the scenes like in the dollhouse before they left, kind of practicing in a way.
Sick.
Yeah.
So he had real good parenting job. Like he has sick kids. Sick. I know they were dealing with the loss of their mom, but that's sick.
Yeah.
But I do like when you cut back and the Aiden and they're like squirming, like their phones are actually dead now. They're squirming to get the generator going, but they can't. So they're like, "Oh, we fucked up. We literally drove a woman crazy, and we don't know what she's capable of now." I'm like, well,
and she has a gun.
And she's now convinced that they are in purgatory and that they must like penance and be accepted by, like, she's fully in this whole purgatory cult mode again. Like, we must go to heaven.
So she believes they're all dead.
Yes.
There's nothing they can do. Again, I love how unconventional the structure of this movie is. I was talking earlier about kind of the kids, how they're not typical of like shitty kids.
Right.
I love how in this whole sequence after the reveal, the perspective switches to the kids, and now it's we're the kids' POV of them like hiding in the attic, and you have the crazy Grace kind of downstairs,
right.
and not that you feel for the kids because you don't have any
not at
sympathy because they caused the entire thing, but you're now in their perspective. So now there's like a sequence where she has to go downstairs and she goes to the bathroom. So now you're scared that Grace is gonna fucking come out of nowhere and fucking kill her because now she's the big bad that's gone crazy. It's not a ghost. It's not anything. It's literally they created this monster and now they have to try to
she's
survive.
There. She's not going away. She's
escape.
a human.
Yeah.
She's there. Like
so I
no
love
ghost.
that perspective shift. How a guy that goes to a more conventional, like, all right, we're following the kids and there's like a big bad after them. It's really cool.
I agree, and I had like zero, like I had negative sympathy for them. I'm like, whatever happens, happens. But I felt their fear.
Yes.
That's what I'll say. But I had zero sympathy for them. I'm like, all right, Grace, do your thing.
That's not hard for you. You're not a fan of kids to begin with.
Especially that these kids, what they do is horrible.
I mean,
Absolutely
I have an ounce. They took it too far.
Dude,
they're kids. I gotta give them a little ounce of sympathy. I mean, some kids don't know when to stop.
Manipulators.
You know, like, oh, they're definitely
more than I don't think manipulator is the right
for
word.
Sure.
But
yeah.
But no, I did feel I'm like when I'm like, okay, this shit's real. Like they're actually terrified for their lives now because they made her go to this crazy mental state. But I do that added the suspense towards the end.
So what did you think? So now we get the conventional classic, like the dad is rushing to save the day. Mm-hmm. Is he going to get there in time? What were you thinking? Anything that was going to happen? Like when you first watched this, what did you think was going to go down?
So I thought that he was going to, because in typical like depressing horror fashion, I thought he was going to arrive and the kids were going to already be dead.
Okay. And
that she was going to have this whole like finale with him, but I actually preferred the way it played out with the movie that the kids, they knew their mom died and now they got to watch their dad die, which even heightened their like, fuck, we are done. We are screwed. We are terrified. So I thought the way it played out was scarier for the kids than the typical the dad showing back up who hasn't been in the whole movie and having that kind of reaction. I thought that would have felt a little cheap. So I actually liked the way it played out. Especially after the kids like literally watched Grace like kneeling in the fire, like just burning herself and like for ready. That scene was also awesome and creepy. So yeah, I liked the way it played out.
I am so happy. I would have hated this ending if it turned into like a conventional like the dad is chasing Grace through the house and it's like this
I didn't. But I knew
scene that wouldn't have fit at all with the movie. So I love the way again the tone is set from the get-go, right, and it never shifts. I mean, we don't get any sort of like big action sequence. I feel like that would have been so out of place for this movie. So I'm really glad they didn't do that. But yeah, so the dad gets there, and you have the big climax of the movie is basically the staircase scene. So you have the kids at the top of the staircase. Grace is right there with the gun, and Richard is trying to plead with her. She's got the gun. She goes to kill herself. Well, she goes to show Richard that they're in purgatory and that they can't die. And I'm like, is she just going to kill herself right now and they're going to live? Like, there's no way it's going to end that cleanly. But no, the gun doesn't go off. It just clicks. And she's like, see, like, I can't die. And this is, to me, there are two big moments, like never split up moments at the end of this movie. And this one is probably the biggest with Richard. I'm screaming at the TV, like, dude, just grab the fucking gun. Mm-hmm. He's still, again, it goes back to his character. He still thinks they're like, he could save her and like bring her back to reality. It's like, dude, do you see the mental state she's in?
Not even physical.
There's no coming back from this.
Like scratched, like frostbit, burnt. She burnt herself in the fire. She's burnt.
There's no, I don't care about any of that. Like, even if you didn't realize, like, she has a gun, like, and she's with your kids, and she's like, at this point, so he tries to like plead with her. He's like reaching out to her. He's like, put the gun down. Like, give me the gun. He's within arm's reach. All he had to do was just grab the fucking gun with his hand and just like, aim it towards the ceiling. But he just stands there and lets her prove to him that they're in purgatory and he needs to join them. So she wants to kill him so he can join them in purgatory or in heaven or whatever she believes in. And yeah, he gets it, man. She shoots him right in the chest, and those poor fucking kids, they are just,
he dies.
Oh my, instantly traumatized. They run into dad. They're screaming like, "Dad, wake up, wake up." Oh my gosh. I feel for him in this scene because no kid deserves to lose both parents like that. I mean,
they created this.
Tough.
They created that monster, which is so smart. The script is so smart. I even love the scene when she's like, "We have to sacrifice something for the Lord," and she takes Mia's doll and puts it in the fire. I'm like, oh fuck. Mia's like, I was like, this is some demented shit. But I do like after Richard's killed, they obviously go run and they try to escape in the car, and you just see Grace like slowly walking out to the car. I'm like, oh fuck, they're not getting away. It's so well paced. The ending is so well paced.
Yeah.
And I obviously love that.
And just to cap off this disturbing ending, the final shot of them at the dinner table, she props up the dead dad at the head of the table and she's like eating their meal. And yeah, it's visually
and she's singing
very,
"Nearer My God to Thee," which is terrifying and so
and she
creepy.
makes them sing. They're pretty much just have given up. They're like paralyzed. This was my other big moment that I think is very stupid. Aiden just not doing anything. He could have fought her. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, he's a big enough kid. He could have put up a fight and like tried to get the gun from her, but he's just totally like catatonic and just has given up.
Which I get
guess.
from the emotional, but
I get, yeah.
Dude, the way it plays out, like going back to the cult when she like sits them at the table and puts the duct tape on them, writes the sin, especially sin on their mouths. Oh, and then you just see you. But again, it's so smart because we don't need to see them die, but you just see the loaded gun on the table and you know what's about to come. And the way she's just standing behind it, I'm like, this is dark. I think this is when I show my parents, are like, this movie's going there. I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, it is. It's so messed up. I don't know. I literally am obsessed with this ending. It's so creepy. And again, Riley Keough, the way she goes from like the innocent, not innocent, but obviously traumatized, innocent woman in the beginning to what she's turned into at the end. I mean, kudos, round of applause for her. And the last shot, it will always get to me where it just you see that all three of them, her standing behind them with the tape, and it just cuts to black. I mean, bravo! This movie is fucking amazing.
Yeah, everything you just said, yeah, for sure. I love the final shot. It's just comes full circle,
dark. And it doesn't have a dad saves it. It doesn't cop out. It sticks to its meanness and it goes there. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I wouldn't want it any other way for a movie like this. So I'm very happy. I would have hated, like you said, if the dad was like chasing her around the house and all that. That's not what this movie was. I kind of was worried about that because the way it played out, I'm like, okay, we're good. But then when it stuck that landing, I'm like, ooh, we're really good.
The only character that really made it out okay is Laura, Alicia Silverstone. I mean, she's like kind of...
I'm taking myself out before any of this happens.
Yeah, she got the easy way out, Holy shit. But yeah, like you said, every character kind of got what was coming to him at the end. Right. I mean, this was just no happy ending, no matter how you slice it.
Yeah, and I think it was smart because it also shows that not only was Grace like clear, obvious she didn't have PTSD and like emotional, mental problems because of the cult, but obviously also like this regular quote unquote family also has issues that no one knows about because obviously, at least, I mean, she kills herself. So it's smart the way they show like the different, like everyone has problems, like everyone needs help. So I thought it was smart the way they played that all out, that no one is in perfect mental health. Everyone needs help.
I think we might disagree, but I think Richard is the main villain in this movie. I think he's to blame for pretty much everything. I know you blame the kids,
villain or dumbass, but I mean, the kids are like fuck them kids to me. But he's the dumbass of the movie for sure for me. Yeah. Like, how stupid can you be? I would never leave my kids. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm not doing that. I wouldn't leave my partner who, I don't know, I wouldn't do it. I don't know. He's an idiot.
And plus, who's leaving Alicia Silverstone? Come on, man. You got a nice woman.
Come on, go to some therapy together.
Yeah.
I felt so bad for her because you can see she was put on her front. She's like, okay. And when she left in the beginning, I'm like, oh, she's having her own mental break. And it was also, I like that you brought that up. It was cool to see Alicia Silverstone's breakdown versus Grace's. That was a cool contrast from the opening to the end.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this movie's excellent.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I'm
like you said, it's kind of
movie,
interesting how different people deal with that stuff, and everyone's kind of going through it. So, yeah. And the dad was just ignorant to all of it. I mean, Richard was
and you could say the same for him to Alicia Silverstone. He was oblivious to everything.
Yeah, because I mean, had he had any insight into her mental well-being, he wouldn't have not only dropped that he wants a divorce, but that he's getting remarried all of a sudden. Or
he
right
could have done it in
a
different handled it in a different way. Even if he didn't want to get back together with her, I'm like, dude, read the room. That's what I want to say to Richard, though. Read the room.
Yeah.
So yeah,
okay.
I mean, I'm obsessed with this movie. I'm happy we covered this one finally.
Yeah. No, that was the Lodge, and that was a good discussion. And okay, that wraps it up. Let's get into our moments. Who wants to go first?
It's
tied.
Up to you because we tied. So I forget.
I'll let you go first.
Time.
I had a few moments that I brought up that I could pick from. So I'll let you pick your favorite.
I'm gonna do my favorite. I mean, the one that that I just scream every time is just why it's just Richard leaves them alone at the cabin, just in the start. I don't need to have any horror shenanigans go on. It's I just felt like the stupidity I felt for him for just leaving and feeling like it was okay. They said they were okay, and Grace was telling him, "You can go. I want you to go." And the kids were putting on a tough face. But if you were any sort of person with a brain, you could see that they are not okay, and you should stay there with them. So that he left them at the cabin alone to go work for a couple days in a blizzard. And maybe make it back by Christmas Eve. I mean, you're cutting it close regardless. So yeah, it's Richard leaving them at the cabin. I mean, I know we had to have him leave for the movie, but I mean, that's just the obvious one right there. That's what I'm going with. My other one's obviously the finale with him. But yeah,
this is a tough one for me because I have two big ones that are really Richard related, and you didn't pick either one. I'm gonna go with the one I'm not going with is the fact that he gives her the gun. That's a moment where it was borderline comical. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Are you that stupid? But I'm gonna go with the other huge one where I was literally screaming at the TV to grab the gun, take the gun. He had every opportunity to just tackle her, grab the nozzle of the gun, pull it away from her. I mean, he again to his very last breath, he was oblivious to how serious of a mental head case she was.
Right.
And I guess he thought even at the end that he could talk her down and they could just kind of talk it out. I don't even know. I don't even know what he was thinking. That's a next level of stupidity where your kids are on the line. That's the thing that gets me is that his kids are obviously screaming, terrified. They're in danger. You need to man up as a dad. I mean, fuck your fiance at this point. She does not come before your kids.
It's action first, talk later. He did the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's diffuse the situation by any means necessary, and then we can talk. Exactly. So yeah, that's the huge moment for me.
So Richard is just the never split up moment of the Lodge. Yes.
I mean, if we ever do a top 10 dumbest characters, he's got to be up there, man. The more I think about it, holy shit, his entire existence in this movie is just one dumb decision after the next. Just totally oblivious. And for an investigative journalist too, to be that, out of touch with his own family.
And I honestly don't even know if they would have been in any better hands if he ended up staying because he's that dumb.
Yeah, I know. He probably would have believed they were in purgatory as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You're totally right. Yeah. Okay. Let's get to our scores.
Okay, cool.
I'll go first this time since you went first last time. Yeah. Again, just a quick recap. I adore this movie so much. I wish this is on high up on my list of movies I wish I could watch for the first time again. It gave me the same type of icky feeling as Hereditary. We talked about it throughout the episode, how it kind of has those same vibes. It's just so atmospheric. I love watching this in the winter. I don't think I watched it last year. I didn't have time, but I try to watch it every winter since I first saw this movie. It is just mean and it is unrelenting. And the ending is I don't know if I want to call it an all-timer ending. I mean, it's up there, but for sure it's an all-timer ending with how it left me and how that image is stuck in my mind. And I'll never forget the way I felt when I saw that ending. And again, I love recommending this to people who say they love horror because I kind of see like how they can handle it or not. Like, do you love like the Conjuring horror or do you love mean horror? So I love doing
deep
that.
And dark.
I adore this movie. I think it's rewatchable for a slow burn movie again because of the kind of the themes it tackles and how dark it is and gritty. I think it's just a great rewatch. I'm going to give this a really good score. It's going to be in 8.6.
Awesome.
8.6.
Hell yeah. I mean, all right, we love The Lodge over at the Never Split Up podcast because, like I said, guys, this was my favorite movie of 2020. I love dark and depressing horror, and this one just takes the cake. It's one of the best of the last decade. It goes there. It's mean. It's dark. It doesn't let up, and it's not afraid to like put anyone in harm's way. And and the things it says about like how you deal with trauma. It's this next level stuff. I love rewatching like the dark and depressing horror, but even this one, I'm like, all right, maybe this year I should take a break because it affects me every time, and that's like a compliment to the movie. So I'm gonna give this movie a 9.3. It's one of the greats for like a bleak horror. It's one of my favorites of the recent memories. So yeah, it's up there for me. 9.3. If you guys haven't watched it, I mean, definitely check it out. But make sure you like plan some time after to like decompress. It's a great depressing horror movie. I love it.
Yeah. I'm going to bump my score up. I'm going to go higher. I'm going to go 8.9. Now, I'm thinking, because you're right. The way it's rewatchable and the way it makes me feel afterwards, it's bleak, but I like genuinely get unsettled. I remember I watched this a couple nights ago and my whole family was asleep. I was the only one in the house and I was walking up the stairs like to my kitchen and like all the lights were out and I was like, oh, I'm a little creeped out right now, because again, it was wintertime. Yeah. I was looking outside the slider door. I'm like, I'm a little unsettled. I mean, this movie really leaves a mark with you. Even after rewatches, the imagery is there. So yeah, I'm going to give it an 8.9. I'm going to go up a little bit. Yeah.
It has a lasting effect on you, whether you're like, I hate it because of how depressing it was, or I love it. No matter what, it's going to leave an impression. And that's what it wants to do.
My sweet spot, and I wanted to touch on this kind of earlier in the episode, I guess before we got into it, but my sweet spot has always been, one of my sweet spots, I should say, is cults and death cults and suicide cults. I just think that is so creepy because it's so real, and we obviously get that in real life. The fact that humans are so easily can follow shit like that and can just blindly like believe stuff so easily, and how cults pop up all the time in real life just gets under my skin. I don't know if it does for you, but like the fact that humans are capable of that, of following like evil like that, because it's just pure evil.
Yeah.
Jonestown Massacre is one of the most common, drinking the Kool-Aid. There's reports that they're going to be making a new adaptation of that movie. I think Leonardo DiCaprio was inked to it at some point. I don't know if he still is, but yeah, like that stuff just gets to me and it gets under my skin. So anytime you tackle stuff like that in a movie, it always leaves a mark with me.
Dude, you almost want to make you bump my score up even more because even the movie makes you believe that they are in purgatory, and it's almost like a play on like what can happen when you're in a cult, like what they can make you believe in when you like, jump in. So, dude, it's so clever. I guess I'll stick with maybe. All right, I'll stick with 9.3. But if we keep talking about it, it's gonna go up. It's just so clever. But I agree 100%. It's the scariest stuff because it's real.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, so we love The Lodge, guys. If you've seen the movie already and you haven't seen it in a while, definitely give it a rewatch. I think it's worth it. It's good. It's just really good. It doesn't really do anything bad. I really couldn't think of. Going into this, I had pretty extensive notes. I couldn't think of really any critique that I wished I got out of this movie. I mean, it was just a great vision from the filmmakers of this film, and they stuck to it. And you can tell that you can always tell when this is a movie that's not like produced in Hollywood and doesn't have producers
definitely has
breathing down
indie
its
written
neck,
all
because
over it.
it sticks to what it is, and it does not give up anything.
The only thing I'll say is if you just like popcorn horror and fun horror, this obviously is not the one for you to check out. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not.
I still think you should check it out.
I think
Expand
you
your
should
horizons.
too. I mean,
it's that good.
Get dark and fucked up for a night and do it, and then go back to your like fun slashers or whatever fun Conjuring stuff the next day. But it's not that. That's all I want to say.
Horror doesn't have to be scary. I like the fun horror too.
Me too.
But every now and then you need to put on a mean fucking horror movie and get yourself creeped out. So yeah, definitely rewatch this movie.
For the Lodge. Every once in a while you need to watch a mean horror movie, and it's The Lodge.
Yeah, exactly. All right, great. So that was episode 71. Thanks everyone for tuning in and listening. Let us know what you think of The Lodge. Do you agree with us? Did it not quite work for you? Maybe let us know if the ending maybe didn't work for you or whatever. And be sure to follow us on social media. We're going to post the Never Split Up poll. That's where we post those polls. And also get ready for our upcoming episode. It's a big one. We're covering Scream 3. Is going to be coming out, episode 72. And then we're getting into some Valentine's horror coming up. Yes. And we'll go from there. So yeah, until next time, this is the Never Split Up podcast. See you guys later. Bye.